everyone, and welcome back to the channel and to this. Once again, another DC themed video and a follow-up to the one we did, I think a few days ago to maybe a week ago. But this time, instead of looking at the Justice League rosters, we're going to actually look at the villains for each. And we'll just crack on. We will do it in the order I did the previous video, so it'll be Warriors, then the What If and all that. And I'll go through each villain and as to why and what sort of theme. I am going to establish some things. There is no Darkseid or Braniac or anyone of like the massive caliber like Anti-Monitor and things like that, like the ones that I don't call run-of-the-mill, but the villains that get used a lot. So you've got none of them. There's no Metallo, there's no Joker or characters like that, so much like with the heroes and those rosters, I've delved further into the villain stuff to try and dig out some other unique ones or have their lineups be a bit unique. So, first of all, we've got the Warrior Justice League, and I will plan out the... Actually, if I just check at the moment, like the heroes, it is a specific layout. You've got Villain 1, which I've put as an organisation. A established organisation, things like the League of Shadows or stuff like that. Villain 2 and Villain 3 are individuals. They might have some command of prowess, but they are individual villains. And then the final one is a villain team, and that's kind of self-explanatory. So 4 antagonistic forces to go through with each team. So for the Warriors, which is the Justice League that consists of Wonder Woman as the leader, Aquaman as the secondary leader, then you've got the original Hourman as the tech specialist, Etrigan and Jason Blood as the magic source, Green Lantern, in this case John Stewart, again the cosmic specialist there and tactician as well. Then as the extras or supporting powers, you've got Atom Smasher and Dr. Light. And then as the final character, you've got Green Arrow as the sort of wild card, but also character to keep them grounded. And also to provide them with resources if they need any. I forgot to mention this in the actual League video, but I could imagine Green Arrow with his wealth and resources being the guy who kind of finds their base of operations if they utilise one. Unless they just decide to use Atlantis. But then moving on to the villains for them. Villain 1 is the organisation. And providing I've done the editing correct and everything, you'll see an image of Talia al Ghul. But it is not Talia as a leader of the League of Shadows or anything like that. It is actually her role as a leader of Leviathan. Because I could imagine Leviathan being a kind of unique antagonistic threat towards this team. Stretch across the globe and all that, with a lot of combat prowess to them, but other unique skills that could put up some challenges for the team. And like, it's also an organisation that's kind of difficult to surprise. They work in the shadows a lot. They know of the Atlanteans, they know of Themyscira, they know of the Magicians, they know of the Green Lantern Corps, so it's quite difficult to catch them off guard. And working in the shadows and being manipulative with this team being like straight up fighters is a bit of a challenging dynamic there. But then the next one is the first like singular villain for these, and delving into the Wonder Woman mythos, but also just the whole aspect of them being fighters and warriors. Ares, the god of, well, you know your Greek mythology. I don't need to say what he is. And yeah, his ability to prey on violence, it gets strengthened through battle and things like that. Having him as the antagonist, maybe bringing in the Annihilator from the Justice League series and stuff as a type of armor he could utilize and manipulate against this team, it would make it very challenging. And having to bring back the sort of brawler fighter mentality of the likes of Diana or Aquaman or Atom Smasher, and having to have them be a little bit more careful about how they go about handling him and facing off against him. And then Villain 3, and this one I was a little bit more hesitant on, but need one that's like a kind of leader of an army and stuff like that, and I decided let's put brother against brother. We've got Ocean Master, Orm, and so you've got the sort of Earth Shadow Organization villain, you've got the Greek god to face from the Wonder Woman rogues, you've got another member of the Atlantean royal family to face the rogues with Aquaman. And they bring their unique style. Obviously, Orm has access to Atlantean technology and these different sort of things, so each one would have their own unique strengths, but it's also they each kind of are a little bit run of the mill for this team, but then this team isn't one for like the real out there kind of threats. They are a straight up fighting team, so you could throw in a couple of others, like I guess you could have turned around and maybe thrown Mongol into, but like Mongol gets used kind of a lot, but then so does Talia, so fair enough. And for the villain team, I have not actually put who the members would be, because the members could be all over the place, to be honest, but for the leaders for a team like this, and you can kind of understand the dynamics when you look at these two different characters. The first character that I've got as the leader of this team of the Legion of Doom, or the one who would bring them together, is Vandal Savage, and his plans are now potentially being interfered with by this team, or this team needing to be dealt with in some cases, because they're thwarting his issues, or he wants a challenge, or just with Savage it could be a number of different things. But then the other one's Maxwell Lord, so you've got the kind of immortal rogue, and then you've got the kind of sort of governmental kind of person who would be forming the Legion as a more way of like a security purpose, or to gain leverage, or again a number of different things. So yeah, that's the first real lineup. I don't have too much to say on any of them. Like, the Legion of Doom's reasonings can be a number of things. Orm and Ares are kind of simple picks for a team that has Wonder Woman or Aquaman at the helm. And I would say Talia might be the most fascinating of all of this with the Leviathan dynamic, but yeah, that is all I've got to say on that notion. So, moving on to the What If team. And just as a reminder, the What If team is led by Black Lightning, with Nightwing as the supportive leader, Wally West Flash, Kyle Rayner Green Lantern, Donna Troy as the tactical picks, and then the two other sort of supporting powerhouses in Red Tornado and Supergirl, and then the wild card of Gypsy. And again, this is a what if. The original 7 Justice League members in this case, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, Barry Allen, Flash, Aquaman and Martian Manhunter vanished. So these would be the guys to assemble the new league if that happened. And the What If team is a bit different with the picks. The first pick as an organisation is Cadmus. And yes, Cadmus, as they kind of are in the Young Justice team, more based around the inspiration from the Justice League and just old DCAU stuff with Amanda Waller and Emil Hamilton and Eiling. And yeah, it would be a team that would see this league as a potential threat that needs to be dealt with, and it could a lot is very mixed in the case of where a couple of these picks could have been the sources as to the original league disappearing or being captured, whilst the others are more opportunistic with it. Like Cadmus, I doubt would have been the ones to actually take down the original Justice League, but they could see this new league forming as a potential threat to their plans. Maybe they want to come up with a more sanctioned team, and then it's a bit of a run-of-the-mill stuff. So yeah, you could see certain heroes or villains be under Cadmus's use for this as well, which could make things quite interesting to say the least. Then Villain 2. And this one, out of all of them, is by far the most personal in the picks, and that's T.O. Morrow. T.O. Morrow obviously being the creator of the Red Androids, including Red Tornado. So, got a bit of a little dynamic there, and I've put him as the image, but it would be like the androids like Red Torpedo and Red Volcano, and that would end up being some of the other antagonistic forces. And I could imagine his focus being maybe partly influence but also partly opportunistic. And the same would be with the third villain and the only actual alien villain on this list, and that's Despero. And now, I know through research that Despero has successfully captured the Justice League before, so it could be that he caught the original team in some sort of trap and then tried to come to Earth to conquer it, only to be encountered by this new team. I mean, his is probably the simplest of the lot. Though it would give him a new kind of style to shine. I was not a fan of the Flash Armageddon crossover. It had a couple of good bits, but most of it was pretty weak. But I do find it quite funny when you have the briefcase where Black Lightning basically just tries to hold him off. It's a dynamic you wouldn't necessarily expect to see, especially if you've just watched the Black Lightning show. But yeah, and Despero against this sort of team could be a fun dynamic as well. Like, you've got Green Lantern in there, and Despero fights the Lanterns a lot. You've got, and the idea that he may have captured the rest of the other team. And it's also the case that Despero does have an air of sort of like possession and magic to him. And this team, whilst it has Donna Troy, who has a little bit of magic, magic is a weaker part for a team like this, so it could be a weakness that they have to work hard to try and overcome and utilise their own strengths to counter Despero's advantages. And I guess that could be sort of the same in some areas with the Red Androids. I mean, yes, okay, this team has Supergirl and flippin' Wally West Flash, but I could imagine whilst that picture is Wally West as the Flash, a lot of this team is like mixture of other DC heroes but also younger heroes, so you could blend that with the idea that much like the Young Justice team, despite their power, they don't necessarily have the experience. So yeah, you have that sort of dynamic to it as well. But then for the villain team, and I had a bit of a difficulty for this one, but I actually got with the Crime Syndicate. Though in this style, I could imagine the Crime Syndicate being more of a case of being opportunistic over the ones who actually captured the League. Maybe they were working alongside someone else, or they just had their own plans and jumped to the advantage. Much like how how it gets established in the Arkham Blackgate stuff, that every villain who takes over actually had their own plan to escape and they just took advantage of the situation. That could happen here as well. Yeah, that is a bit of a dynamic to all of this as well. And the Crime Syndicate as well would be a tough team for this team to take on as well. Like, you can have the simple matchups. You've got Kyle against Powering, Wally against Johnny Quick, Supergirl against Power Girl, or that would actually be an interesting one. Which one would Supergirl take on, Power Girl or Ultraman? And if so, who takes on the other one? Do you leave Donna Troy to try and take on Superwoman? And then you've got like the other twist dynamics is like, does Nightwing try and take on Owlman, or who faces against the likes of Grid or Deathstorm, or is Atomica in there as well? Like, all of these different ideas that you could throw in for the Crime Syndicate against this team. I mean, who faces off against Gypsy and stuff like that. So, yeah, that would be a bit of an interesting lineup, I think. It would definitely be a unique one, I could say. And on a full team versus team brawl, as much as I like this What If team, I'm not fully convinced that they would actually win. So yeah, it would be a fun dynamic to throw in there. Can this new team of heroes who have just united and combined, or taken up these roles of some of their mentors or allies or things like that, can they actually take on an alternate version of that league? But moving on, and we're moving on to the League of My Own story, or the Justice League of My Own story, in which case is led by Batman with Black Canary as the backup, or the second leader. Again, Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern as the cosmic presence, Zatanna as the magical presence, Atom, Ray Palmer as the scientist and specialist in his unique case, Black Lightning and Hawkman as extra backup powers, and then the not wild card, but final 8th member of Martian Manhunter. And this team and the villains I've picked are kind of based on the ideas I had for the story. So, to an extent, some of them are not. A couple of them are a little bit different that I didn't actually add into the story, but the first villain, and that's the organisation, is the Red Lantern Corps, and that's a part of what would happen in the dynamic in the story where the Red Lanterns would actually attack. So that plays into that, and that would just be a full-blown sort of invasion of Earth, full-blown attack. The team may be standing by and uniting with a Lantern Corps, most likely the Green Lanterns, and just trying to do their best. And having other heroes around like Superman and Flash doing their bits who are rogue and present. Same with Diana and Aquaman ruling their people, but it would still be an interesting one to have a team like this take on Atrocitus and the Red Lanterns, where you've obviously got Kyle as the Green Lantern, you've got Martian Manhunter in there, and but then you've got other unique styles. You've got Zatanna as the magician, you've got the real prone fighter in Hawkman, you've got the grounded heroes, you've got the scientist of Atom, so it is a varied team to take on something like the Red Lantern Corps, but with Bruce's expertise, and then you could have references like to the Tower of Babel, and it's like, can you twist his potential plans against a Green Lantern to work against the Red Lanterns. But the actual first villain, in terms of an individual villain, well, I say individual, technically it would be through Anthony Ivo, but it's Amazo, and in the storyline, Amazo would be the villain that would actually bring the team together in the first place. So I don't necessarily need to go too much into detail about it. Amazo is the one who adapts and copies the powers, so having a team like this it's both risky but also kind of key, because at some point you have to put the things to risk to actually be able to stop him. And then villain 3, who originally I would say I had as Felix Faust, I've actually changed around to make into Circe as a proper magical villain for these guys, because it does delve into the magic, and Satana gets tied with the Justice League Dark and stuff like that. So, and having a magical villain against this sort of team with, again, the Magician, the Scientist, the Martian, the Lantern, and again, also a character like Hawkman who has the Nth Metal, which obviously has all of its wondrous properties. So it would be a interesting lineup to see, and the sort of plans that Circe would have and how they would affect each other. But then the final one for this team, and it's one that admittedly I don't know too much about, but I picked because of the interesting dynamics from it. And it would actually be that it's like the LSV or something, the Legion of Supervillains, basically the evil counterpart to the Legion of Superheroes. So for the villain team, the last time around we had a team from an alternate Earth, and this time we've got ones from the future. So having this team face off against the league that I picked would be all kinds of unique and intriguing to see what would actually happen. And honestly, I know it is got as like a picture of the Legion here, but the inspiration from it was like Justice League against the Fatal Five, so it would be a number that would be more reasonable instead of just a whole army of villains, although them trying to bring them back could be part of the reason why the team has to get involved and stop them. So that one could be quite a fascinating dynamic to deal with, and especially for a team like this that has no time traveler and has no speedster. Like, the closest they actually have to that is probably the Atom, and they've got all of these different cosmic ties and stuff like that. And this is a team that, unless you want to count not having a speedster as a weakness, they don't necessarily have too many weaknesses. They've got one major heavy hitter in terms of raw physical power. They've got a couple of other decent physical heavy hitters. They've got magic, they have science, baseline metahumans with more unique kind of powers, a massively intelligent tactician in Batman. So, without doing the classic line of "because I'm Batman," so there's that team, and whoops, I've scrolled back through the list a bit too quickly there. Moving on to the arguably one of the stronger pick teams of all of this, in the Cosmic team. The team led by Superman, second in command of Martian Manhunter, then the three specialists, the Magician and the Lord of Order himself, Dr. Fate, the real cosmic super strength, power and intelligence and knowledge that comes with that in terms of Blue Beetle, the new god in the form of Big Barda, and then you've got the other supporting figures. You've got the newer and younger Green Lantern of Jessica Cruz, you've got the kind of alternate Earth hero in the Ray, and then you've got the wild card of Plastic Man, which I still laugh about the fact that I've got him in this list. So to face off against them, the going a bit back to front here, I've got the Legion of Supervillains as the villainous team for this one, and it's kind of sad that the reason I recognise that is the animation style, but so yeah, they're the villain team for the cosmic side, which kind of makes a bit more sense, really. And anyway, right, we're done the team, so we'll go through the two single villains and we'll finish with the organisation this time. The first of the two villains is probably one of the most run-of-the-mill picks I could have gone for stuff like this, but it would be him with the Warworld battle station, and that is Mongol. Galactic threat, he wants to conquer everything, so makes sense as a single entity, plus them trying to take on this battle station would be fascinating. Also, having a live-action version of that amazing scene from Young Justice where Dr. Fate just deflects a massive shot from the Warworld would be just fantastic. So yeah, that's the Mongol pick. He's obviously a key rival to Superman, he's a key rival to the Lanterns. I think he's also had some sort of run-in with Martian Manhunter at some point, maybe. So, he was a bit of a no-brainer pick with all of this. But as you guys can probably see, I've also been trying very hard to not pick the same villains for the different teams. I have been trying very hard to keep them separated. And if I remember correctly, this one is this person, because the name has escaped me a little bit. And yep, it is him. Okay, so this next one is by far the probably greatest powerhouse and threat we have seen on these lists so far, and a bit of a lesser known pick as well to make things interesting, and that's Relic. And partly picked because I love the White Lantern storyline and stuff like that, and just all of the Jeff Johns Green Lantern stuff. But yeah, Relic is the pick here, and him going after the Lanterns or stuff like that, and them needing a cosmic team to take him on, like him trying to go after the emotional spectrum and the amount of damage that could cause. So then being able to have a team like this, and each team would play a different role, like Ray, Blue Beetle, Big Barda, they'd be, and Superman would be the real main hitters, and that Jessica Cruz would bring in the Lantern ties. Plastic Man, I'm not quite sure how really useful he'd be against Relic, but he's a character who is frequently underestimated, so you never know. Martian Manhunter, who could be very much the guy who attempts to negotiate with Relic if that's possible, and Dr. Fate, who would have an interesting sort of dynamic against him as well. So yes, we've got a different sort of character in there, and one that would be almost one that the team would have to go on an offensive against. So to the opposite of Mongol, who would come and attack Earth, they'd probably have to actually scale out and pursue Relic across space. So yeah, that could be a interesting little twist, and give an opportunity to explore more of like the cosmic side explore more of the cosmic side without going for one of the more run-of-the-mill antagonists like Sinestro or Darkseid or Braniac, or yes, even Mongol. So it'd be a good little story opportunity for that, for more development and more growth towards the Lantern cause if he is pursuing the entities and stuff like that. And then speaking of the Lanterns, it's a cosmic one, so you can't really do that without having Lantern villains show up in a different light. So for the organisation, and I know this is a little bit of a cop-out considering we had the Red Lanterns for the last time, but we've got the Yellow Lanterns this time, Sinestro's Corps. And again, like Atrocitus and the Red Lanterns, pretty self-explanatory, but would be a fun dynamic, especially if we saw a situation where Plastic Man's trying to fight Sinestro, or if Sinestro's arrogant enough to think he could actually take on Dr. Fate. But so there's a few different funny ones there, and with ones like that, with like a Fear Lantern Corps in that, you need guys who are pretty adverse to fear. You've got, and again, like having these lantern figures, you've got a character powered by the Reach, and the Reach have numerous run-ins with the Lantern Corps. Be fun to see them like team up with the likes of Saint Walker and Saint Walker being forced to have to work alongside a character from the Reach and stuff, so, or powered by them. Also, Big Barda just having a new god fight against the Sinestro Corps, that would be quite amusing. The Ray as well, like the no-nonsense kind of guys. So, yeah, the Legion would bring in that future kind of dynamic and thing, which would be interesting. And the other three were just more sort of fun picks. You've got the Mass Invasion, you've got the Tyrant, and then you've got the one that would have to be almost a pursuit through the cosmos to try and stop. And actually, on a rare case, have something like the Justice League actually be on the offensive against a character, or desperately trying to catch up with them. Which is kind of interesting. You see that a lot when it comes to like time travel type ones, but you really don't see it that often when it comes to the space ones. Right, 2 more teams to go, and my voice is feeling like it's drying up, so we're gonna get through these guys pretty quickly, although this next one is going to be absolutely fun because we've got the Major Crisis. The Major Crisis, the team that I say would get led, but more likely assembled by the Phantom Stranger, actually led by Barry Allen. Then you would have Obsidian, Satana, and Firestorm as the backups. Obsidian, the powers of the Shadowlands, Satana again, the Magician, Firestorm with his ability to transmutate stuff and all of his different variety of powers, and then you've got Captain Atom with, again, his variety of powers, Mira with manipulation over water and the sheer powers there, and then Swamp Thing, because Swamp Thing is awesome. And this team, once again, is dealing with the Major Crisis, although I will say the villain team is more of a pairing this time around. But you've got the Lords of Chaos as the organisation, and I could imagine a very Young Justice Season 4 Child and Flaw dynamic with that they would have to try and combat. So, again, Lords of Chaos, they want to sow chaos. It's kind of self-explanatory in there. Maybe they have to team up with Clarion or something like that. It's quite interesting. And then Villain 2, and again, speaking of the time chasing and that, I've got Kronos. Or Kronos. So you have a speedster against you have a speedster hero sort of leading this team to face off against a time traveling villain. So again, that one would have all sorts of fun little dynamics and stuff like that, especially with the different power sets at hand here. And how his time abilities could maybe manipulate and offset some of them. Like, I don't quite know how much he'd be able to really offset them, and how much of what he could do could the Stranger involve himself and try and counter, or these different things. But then to go with ones that are more of like a line-up to the Stranger and Spectre kind of levels, we've got Eclipso. And you'll notice that this is a major crisis team, and like I said, there is no Darkseid and there is no Anti-Monitor. But yeah, Eclipso, because I think Eclipso was done very well in the Stargirl TV series, and yeah, having this team face off against a character like that would be absolutely fascinating. Like, is the thing about these characters is like, do any of these deem the Stranger having to actually physically involve himself in terms of fighting, or is he simply going to just be in the background trying to coordinate things? Because that's the difference between the Stranger and the Spectre. The Stranger is always the one that tends to be more in the background, whilst the Spectre is the one who is more likely to actually involve himself. But Kronos and Eclipso each bring their own different powers and traits to the fight, so it would be very interesting to see how this team would handle stuff like that, especially if Eclipso is based around like those ties to the Shadowlands and that, because that would kind of make Obsidian a little bit obsolete as it did with the Shade. But yeah, all sorts of unique things that could happen with a team like that against villains like those, so this would definitely be the most out there of all of them, like having the wackiest things happen and stuff, so it'd be very interesting. But then, instead of absolute chaos or time travel or Eclipso and his demonic wrath, to conclude this team, with the villain team, we have another mix, and ones that would be very interesting for this team to try and take on: Alexander Luthor and Superboy Prime. So yeah, bringing that team back, not pairing back, and yeah, trying to take those two on without a Superman or a Supergirl present. I mean, gram for gram and heavy hitter against heavy hitter, the best chance that this team have of it against the likes of them are Captain Atom or Swamp Thing, in terms of ones who can actually go blow for blow. Barry, Satana, Mirror, and Obsidian are all incredibly powerful, but none of them are like the straight up can match them in a brawl. I mean, Barry could try and like delay them and stuff to an extent, but would Stranger have to involve himself in these? And whilst I could say that the chaos at Eclipso would be I would imagine their plots being fairly simplistic. Kronos could be a bit more wacky, but I could also imagine this team's one being a little bit more, well, wacky as well. So yeah, interesting lineup there, and unique set of challenges for a team called the Major Crisis Team, and ones that skip out on the run-of-the-mill, or not the run-of-the-mill, but the ones that get primarily thought of when people think DC and like major galactic level threats. It's like, again, Darkseid, Braniac, the likes of that. So I mean, okay, some people would probably think Superboy Prime as well for this, but not many think Alexander Luthor, even though he was kind of villainous. Not many people pick Eclipso or Kronos either, or the Lords of Chaos, so it would be an interesting situation there. But to wrap up with the final case, we've got the international team. The team led by Tim Drake, Red Robin, backed up by Satara, and then the three specialists. You've got Aqualad, Calder version, as the Atlantean presence and water manipulator. Vixen with her mastery over the red and the animal spirits. Deadman, Boston Brand, with the fact that, well, he's a ghost and his spiritual presence and magic. But then the other three picks: Tasmanian Devil, Ice, and then the wild card of Solstice. So with this team, you've got a real mix of you don't really, outside of Vixen and Satara, you don't really have Justice League members unless you count Ice in this one. It's more of a case of a mix of Titans, Global Guardians, and other heroes here, but it's also a team with a lot of unique traits and stuff like that. But they are called the International Team, so the Villain One organization, and I mentioned this in their team lineup, and that they would be dealing with quite grounded but still international threats like terrorist organizations and stuff like that. So the Villain One organization got the Ninth Circle, and okay, yes, I picked a picture from the Arrowverse, but that's mainly because I don't know what they look like in the comic books, to be honest. But I looked through their members that they have, and it's like Cheshire and Daniel Brickwell and all of that, so they've got a lot of fun little traits there. But again, this lineup has a lot of unique different challenges to it. You've got the organisation of the Ninth Circle as this shadowy international threat, because again, no Ra's al Ghul or the League of Assassins, the closest we've got is Talia and the Leviathan. So you have them as like the organisation that would be the run of the mill and taking on and combating them across the globe. Then Villain 2. And an interesting pick, seeing as we have no speedster in this team. Got Grodd, and Grodd in this case trying to control Gorilla City and doing what Grodd pretty much does most of the time, so not too adventurous with him, but at the same time a unique international threat for them to take on. And also because watching Grodd and Tasmanian Devil fight would be quite interesting. Especially if Grodd's got like an inhibitor on his psychic abilities. Then Villain 3. And another pick, because we haven't actually done anything down this line for the villain side yet. We have a speedster villain. And for this one, I picked the comic version, or comic book version, not the show version of Savitar, and his idea that he steals speed from the other speedsters. Meaning that a team like this trying to take a character on like that and his cult would be quite unique and its own very strange little challenge. But and I know people turn around and talk about, oh, speedster villains have to be insanely nerfed or stuff like that. But if you look at this team, you've got a water bender, you've got someone who's got cryotelekinesis, or cryokinesis, whichever one it's called. You've got Solstice, who's got her light powers and things like that. Tasmanian Devil, okay, who would be a bit of a limited aspect in all of this. Vixen, who has, again, her own unique set of powers. You've got a magician in Satara, you've got the possession abilities of Deadman, and you've got someone who is arguably one of the strongest human tacticians that the DC heroes have. Or certainly the Robin who inherited the most of that from Batman. So yeah, I know putting Savitar on there's a little bit of a stretch, but I did also try and weigh it up comic book based on who was actually the strongest out of Thorn, Zoom and Savitar, because I wasn't going to put the strongest in there because yes, I can still accept that even the strongest would probably wipe the floor with them unless you've got a Hell to Pay film situation there where he's got a giant hole in his head. But then finally, and this is definitely taking inspiration from Batman Arkham Origins, we've got a villain team that would be assembled by Black Mask, and in this case it would be a set of mercenaries. And little funny fact about this one, I am not someone who uses AI a lot. I do try and avoid it as much as I can. But to actually sort of determine this, especially with some characters that I wasn't as familiar with, I did actually put these matchups this team matchup to AI to see what his verdict was, because originally I had Killer Croc on this list, but then I changed it around because I didn't want a verdict that was like the hero straight up win or the villain straight up win. I wanted one that would be close to make it fascinating and interesting to watch. So with that in mind, we have a team composed of, or formed by Black Mask, that consists of Deathstroke, the Shade, White Canary, the comic book version, Gentleman Ghost, Clayface, Volcana, and Cheshire. And it was quite fascinating listening to the development, and one thing that I did appreciate was like it was showcasing how significant Deadman would be in a fight like that, and how unique his abilities were, because in my mind it would effectively be him versus Gentleman Ghost, but it's like I'm not quite sure how much of their powers would really negate each other, seeing as they're both ghosts. Solstice could take on the Shade if they could get an angle, or Solstice could be distracted by another character. You've got the tactical backgrounds of Black Mask and Tim Drake. You've got Deathstroke, who I could imagine would end up facing down against like Aqualad or something. Tasmanian Devil, who I feel like would have the unfortunate case of trying to take on Clayface, which would always be quite amusing. Ice, who would be an interesting mix against Volcana. Vixen against Cheshire, which is kind of like a... If Vixen against Cheshire is such a run-of-the-mill kind of choice, and one that's so much of a no-brainer that in Injustice 2, to include Vixen, they made her a different character skin for Cheshire. So... not Cheshire, Cheetah. Cheetah. That's who I was trying to say. Cheshire, Cheetah, da-da-da. And yeah, White Canary would be mixed in there as well, but you've also got Zatara in there with his magic, so it could be like the Shade ends up could have the battle of the guys with the top hats. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic with lots of different sets of teams and all that, and I will try and remember what that other name was and put it in the edit. You will see if I remembered. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say, because my voice is starting to fade, and for some reason I thought I was going to be smart enough to be able to take on 2 recordings today. I doubt that's going to happen. Yeah, it's no brainer. I can do the other one in the week. Well, I have to do 2 in the week anyway, but one of them will be done on the Friday creative stream this week. Yeah, tried to have a creative weekend and it hasn't necessarily gone to plan. But yeah, back on track. Let me know in the comments which of these matchups would have been your favourite, and if you would have traded any character out, but like in terms of the villains, but also trying to stick to the rules of not going for the major picks. So not going for Joker or Darkseid or Braniac or Lex Luthor or those ones. I know Cheetah gets used a massive amount as Wonder Woman villain, and so does Ares, but then Wonder Woman villains don't get showcased anywhere near as much as those ones, so it's a bit of like a balancing thing. Like, you can argue the same thing about the Red Lanterns and the Yellow Lanterns. Yes, they get showcased in Green Lantern continuity. Outside of Green Lantern continuity, it is very rare. So yeah, that's going to be where I conclude today. So what I am going to say is please do comment, like and subscribe. Please do share with your friends if you enjoyed. The links to the Ko-fi and the Payhip are in the description, so please feel free to check them out and the content there. The other 2 Avalas books are going to be uploaded to Payhip soon. It's just been a lot going on, so... Thank you all for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed. And if you would like to see some similar content to this one, you can click there. Or if you would like to change around and have an explore of some of the other content, then you can check out the link below, which will be to a playlist. And if you would like to check out the content on other pages or socials, or if you would like to explore some of the other elements in detail, or pick up a book or whatever, or come and chat to me on Twitch when I'm alive, then down there. And as you can see, it has a list of what to expect on each of those platforms. And until next time, welcome to the Kingdom of Avalas, the world of Fellow Mind books. Please do like, please do subscribe, and if you want to, pop out a comment.